Good day everyone, I am DHANNA-LESLY C. Aldacan and I am going to report the Genetically Modified Organism or the GMO, Science, Health, and Politics. To begin with, in 2001, Rosalie Alasus, a former overseas Filipino worker in Singapore turned farmer, attended the Integrated Pest Management Farmers Field School and was introduced to BT corn, a genetically modified corn that is resistant to the destructive Asian corn borer. Ms. Elasus volunteered for demo testing in her field. BT corn yielded 7.2 tons as compared to a regular yield of 4.2 tons per hectare. No insecticide spraying was needed. This is one of the success stories of genetically modified organism or the GMOs on Kinko 2016. So, what is GMO? GMO is genetically modified organism. It is the term used for an organism created through genetic engineering, which the genetic material or the DNA has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating or natural recombination. GMO is also are like science projects with plants or animals. Scientists change their DNA in a special way that doesn't happen on its own, like when animals have babies. They do this to make the plants or animals better in some way, like making fruits stay fresh longer or helping crops grow better in dry places. People thought making GMOs could help us have better food and medicines using cool science. The development of GMOs was perceived to help in the advancement of technology for the benefit of humans in different industries. GMOs in food and agricultural industries. Number 1 is pest resistance. Pest resistance is genetically modified plants to resist certain pests. This means that it is altered to be able to fend off specific pests like insects or worms that can harm them. This is done by adding genes to the plant that make it harder for pests to eat or damage it. For an example is the BT corn. The DNA genome of the BT corn has been modified with the gene of Bacillus thuringiensis, a soil bacterium that produces proteins which is toxic to the corn borers or the worms. Number 2 is virus resistance. Virus resistance is a genetically modified plants to resist certain viruses. This means that virus resistance of GMO plants are engineered to be able to fight off certain viruses that can make them sick. Scientists add special genes to the plants to help them recognize and defend against these harmful viruses, similar to how our immune system fights off germs. An example is the GM papaya or rainbow papaya. The papaya ring spot virus or the PRSV is known to be detrimental to papaya plant. The protein of PRSV was introduced to the papaya plant through plant tissue, which turned out to be resistant to the virus itself. The effect was like the vaccines humans have against measles or the influenza virus. Number 3 is the herbicide tolerance. Herbicide tolerance is a genetically modified plants to tolerate herbicide. This means that herbicide tolerance genetically modified plants are designed to survive exposure to certain weed-killing chemicals known as herbicides. This is achieved by adding genes to the plants that make them resistant to the herbicides, so farmers can use them to kill weeds without harming the crops. For an example is the Roundup Ready soybean glyphosate. An herbicide for weeds was introduced to soybeans, making it tolerant to the herbicide itself. Farmers then can spray the herbicide killing weeds but not soybeans. And number 4 is the fortification. Fortification is a genetically more fortified with certain minerals. Fortification is GMO plants are enriched with specific minerals or nutrients to make them more nutritious. Scientists add extra vitamins, minerals, or other beneficial substances to the plants to improve their health benefits when consumed. For example is the golden rice. The beta carotene, a precursor of vitamin A, was introduced through biosynthesis genes to the rice, making the rice grains fortified with vitamins A. And we go to number 5, the cosmetic preservation. Cosmetic preservation is a genetically modified plants resist natural discoloration. This means that it is genetically modified plants are to resist natural processes that cause them to change color or spoil over time. This helps keeps the plants looking fresh and appealing for longer periods, reducing food waste. An example is the Arctic apple. The apple variety was genetically modified to suppress the browning of an apple due to superficial damage. And the last is increased growth rate. Increased growth rate, a genetically modified organism that has higher yield in growth than normal species. This means that increased growth rate or the GMOs are organisms like plants that have been modified to grow faster and produce more food than usual. Scientists alter the genes of these organisms to enhance their growth abilities, helping farmers produce more food to feed a growing population. An example is the aqua-advantage salmon. A gene from an ocean pout, an eel-like fish, was introduced to Pacific Chinook salmon, making the salmon grow faster than its normal rate. The benefits of GMOs. It is higher efficiency in farming. There will be less use for herbicides or pesticides and lower costs for labor and cultivation. Next is it increase in harvest. GMO crops resistant to pests and diseases means increase in potential growth and harvest. Last is control in fertility. Controlling the purity of the hybrid seeds or the GMO seeds ensure higher yields.
Hello everyone, I'm Arcilla and I am assigned to report the GMOs in non-food crops and microorganisms. Number 1, flower production. GMOs in flower production are seen in modified color and extended base life of flowers. For example is blue roses, the so-called blue roses, which are in reality lilac or purple. It contains cyanidin 3 to 5-diglycoside together with large amounts of flavonols. The introduction of flavonoid 31 and 51 hydroxylase gene into perlagonidine or cyanidin, producing rose cultivars diverts the anthocyanin. Number 2, the paper production. Modified characteristics of trees for higher yield of paper production. Examples are poplar trees. Lignin is a complex polymer in trees that is removed from wood to make paper through craft process. Through inserting genes that code for ferulic acid in young poplar trees, the lignin structure is modified, making lignin easier to break down. For number 3, pharmaceutical production. Modified plants to produce pharmaceutical products. So these are for example of it is medicine. For example of pharmaceutical production is the medicine. Examples are periwinkle plants. Bacterial genes were added to the periwinkle plant to enhance the production of vinblastine, an alkaloid usually added to drugs for cancer treatments like Hodgkin's lymphoma. Number 4, bioremediation. Use of modified plants that can assist in the bioremediation of polluted sites. An example is shrub tobacco. Nicotiana glauca or shrub tobacco genetically modified with phytokeratin TAPCSII. It is used for bioremediation. It shows high level of accumulation of zinc, lead, cadmium, nickel, and boron and produces high biomass. Number 5, enzyme and drug production. Enzyme and drug production. It is use of modified microorganisms that can produce enzymes for food processing and medicines. One example of this is the CG taste. It is an enzyme used for food flavor enhancer. It is used produced in higher quantity by Bacterium bacillus, which was genetically modified with the gene of a thermophilic anaerobe. Another example is artemisinin. Artemisinin acid is a compound used for anti-malarial drug extracted from sweet wormwood plant. Through genetic engineering, it can be synthetically produced by yeast and bacteria with sweet wormwood plant gene. Number 6. GMOs in the medical field. Genetic engineering is playing a significant role from diagnosis to treatment of human-dreaded diseases. It helps in the production of drug, gene therapy, and laboratory researches. So one classic example is the humulin, the genetically engineered insulin used by type 1 diabetes patients who are insulin dependent. So in the past, insulin is extracted from the pancreases of pigs and cows that have causes allergic reaction to some diabetics using it. In 1978, researchers from the City of Hope, National Medical Center, and Genetic Biotechnology Company were able to produce human insulin. So the gene for insulin was inserted to bacterial DNA that was able to produce almost exactly the same human insulin. This was a breakthrough in the mass production of human insulin. In 1996, modified human insulin was approved called the Humalog. So those are the GMOs in non-food food crops and microorganisms. The flour production, the paper production, the pharmaceutical production, the biomediation, enzyme and drug production, and the GMOs in the medical field. So let's proceed to the potential risk of GMOs. So there are opponents of GMOs have the following major concerns. Number 1, since genetic engineering is still a young branch of science, there are inadequate studies on the effects of GMOs to humans and the environment. For the second one, genetic engineering promotes mutation in organisms, which the long-term effect is still unknown. Number 3, human consumption of GMOs might have the following effects: more allergic reactions, gene mutation, antibiotic resistance, and the nutritional value. Potential health risks to humans include the possibility of exposure to new allergens and genetically modified foods, as well as the transfer of antibiotic resistant genes to gut flora. So that would be the end of my report. Thank you.